What's up, guys? A major question people often ask when first starting out in private practice is whether they ought to be on any insurance panels. So in this video, I'm going to share my experience being on insurance panels in private practice. Stay tuned. Insurance made me want to tear my hair out. Welcome to Private Practice Skills. I'm Dr. Marie Fang, psychologist in private practice. I post videos offering tools I learned the hard way about starting and growing private practice so that you don't have to. When I first started out in private practice, several colleagues would tell me that the only way to have a successful, thriving private practice was to be on insurance panels. For all y'all who've heard that before, let me tell you, it is not true. But the decision to join insurance panels is an important one to think through. I'm going to split this video into a two-part series. So in this first video, I'm going to go over what my experience was like when I accepted insurance in private practice. Next week, I'm going to go into part 2 of this video series, within which I'll cover the pros and cons of private pay versus insurance in private practice. So be sure to be subscribed to this channel so you can see that when it goes live. For now, let's focus on my experience. Full disclosure before we get into it, I had a terrible experience being on insurance panels. However, I don't want this to deter you from considering being on insurance panels yourself. There's a few things that I did the wrong way, which I'm going to cover later, that I think if you're interested in, you can improve on my mistakes and have a much better time being on insurance panels. After graduating, my postdoc in private practice, accepting only private pay clients wasn't getting me my hours quickly enough. So I snatched up another internship in another private practice, but that one accepted mostly insurance paying clients. So here are some of the pros and cons I experienced accepting insurance in that setting, as well as some of the items that I think could have been improved upon. Let's start with the pros of accepting insurance. The first and biggest pro of accepting insurance is that my practice filled up quickly. It was maybe about 3 weeks before I was seeing 15 clients in the 3 days per week that I was at that job. Piggybacking off of that pro is pro number 2, no marketing. I got those clients without doing any marketing at all. Those clients just called in because I was listed on their insurance panels. The last pro that I'm aware of and grateful for is that insurance did make it a lot more accessible for many people to come into counseling who otherwise might not be able to pay the full fee out of pocket. Okay, we're gonna get into the cons of accepting insurance now, and as I warned you, I had a bad experience, so sit down and get ready to hear my long list. Con number 1, lack of control. I had almost no control over what types of clients I was working with. I mean, if somebody called in and they wanted to apply their insurance to come see me and I was on their panel, unless I was wildly unqualified to help them, I had to see them. So the downside here is that there was no sense of being able to focus on my specialty or particular areas that I am most excited to work with. Con number 2, lower pay. This is a huge con. I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit more later, but to start off, insurance decides how much to pay you by taking a look at your zip code and your qualifications and deciding how much they think someone of your qualifications should charge if you were charging out of pocket. Now, they estimate this to be much lower than what people are actually charging in your area, so that's a little bit harsh, and then they only pay you a percentage of that. So think of a full fee, subtract a bunch of money from that, and then they pay you something like 75% of that. So it's a huge dock in pay. It goes further than that because, from my experience, out of all the clients that were attempting to apply their insurance in order to see me, about 50% of those claims would be denied by insurance. 50%. And so I would have clients coming in that basically the only pay I'd ever see from them was their copay, which was somewhere around $25 an hour, depending on what type of insurance policy they had. $25 an hour. That's not even enough to cover overhead. As an intern at the time, this would come out to just a few dollars every hour I'd see a client. Con number 3, wasted time. I spent about 3 to 5 hours per week in this part-time practice on hold with insurance companies contesting denied claims. So that's 3 to 5 hours of time that I feel are wasted, not only because I had to sit on hold with insurance, which is not fun, but I could have been spending that time meeting with more clients. So I also see that as a dock in pay as well. Con number 4, disrupted therapy process. So not only were about 50% of my claims denied, but insurance companies would lag in letting me know that they're going to deny a claim. So I could have been meeting with a client weekly for 2 or 3 months before insurance finally gets back to me to let me know that they're denying this person's claim. They would get this huge bill in their lap after 3 months of seeing me that they never anticipated they would get, and it would disrupt our therapy process. I'd get angry phone calls from my clients. I'd have clients who would stop coming even though they really were probably needing some therapy at the time. So this is also a really big con. Con number 5 is stigmatization. So insurance only pays if the client meets criteria for a diagnosis. Now this is part of the process. We're all familiar with the DSM, and we need to do that ICD-10 diagnosis in the paperwork in order for insurance to say, okay, it makes sense for you to provide therapy. I understand that. However, the downside is that now this person on their record has a diagnosis stuck there forever, whether they like it or not, and I don't know how that might be impacting that person emotionally or even just practically with their insurance payments, premiums, etc. So that's a concern as well. Okay, let's go over some of the things that I think I could have been improved upon, or in this case, my supervisor could have improved upon, to help you get on the right foot if you do decide to accept insurance in private practice. Tip number 1, get specialized training. Insurance billing is no walk in the park. It is a process. It's not a learn as you go type of experience. And especially considering that the tiniest little mistake could end up being cause for insurance to deny a claim and land a huge bill in your client's lap, it's absolutely worth finding involved coursework to walk you through every single step of how to bill insurance. Option number 2, employ someone to do your billing. If you don't like the idea of taking a bunch of coursework and potentially spending at least 20% of your work week on hold with insurance contesting denied claims, you might like to employ someone to do that for you. Now, employing someone is quite an expense, and if you're billing insurance, you're not having a whole bunch of income coming in anyway. So one of the most practical ways that I see people do this is that they form a group practice where everyone in the group accepts the same insurance panels, and they have one person that does all of their billing for them. So that might be an option that works well for you. So if you're considering accepting insurance in private practice, this is really worth thinking through these items. Stay tuned for next week's video when we're going to compare private pay practice and insurance-based practice side by side with the pros and cons. So I look forward to seeing you then. Until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well. But the decision to join insurance is hard to say.